Hi, my name is Francis,
I'm Catherine,
and we're doing goniometry.
manual muscle testing.
For shoulder flexion, we're going to put the axis in the middle of the humerus. The stationary is going to be parallel to the thorax. And can you perform shoulder flexion? And it is, we will measure to the midline of the humerus, and it's exactly 180 degrees.
This is range of motion for shoulder extension. The axis is going to be on the lateral aspect of the greater tubercle. The stationary arm is going to be on the midline of the thorax, and the mobile arm is going to be in the midline of the humerus. Can you perform shoulder extension? And it is 50.
We're going to perform shoulder horizontal adduction. We're going to put the axis over the top of the cranium. The stationary arm will be over the shoulder. And then can you perform shoulder horizontal adduction? You're measured to the midline, and she's at about 100.
This is range of motion for shoulder horizontal abduction. The axis is going to be on top of the cranium. The stationary arm is going to go across the shoulder. Can you perform the motion? The mobile arm is going to be the midline of the humerus, and it is 30. This is range of motion for shoulder abduction 90 degrees. The axis is going to be placed on the anterior aspect of the cranium. The stationary arm is going to be parallel to the sternum. Perform the motion. The mobile arm is going to be in line with the midline of the humerus, and it's 90 degrees.
Okay, so we're going to do shoulder internal rotation, and we're going to go put the axis in all the cranial process, and the stationary arm is going to be perpendicular to the floor. And can you do shoulder internal rotation? And then we're going to go towards the silent process, and it is at about 85 degrees.
This is range of motion for shoulder external rotation. The axis is going to be placed on the olecranon process. The stationary arm is going to stay perpendicular to the floor. Can you perform external shoulder rotation? The mobile arm is going to be in line with the ulna, and it's 90 degrees.
We're going to do range of motion for elbow flexion, and we're going to place the axis in the lateral epicondyle, and then the stationary arm is going to be in the lateral midline of the humerus. The mobile arm is going to be in the lateral midline of the radius. Can you do elbow flexion? And it is 140 degrees.
This is range of motion for elbow extension. The axis is on the lateral epicondyle. The stationary arm is going to be on the midline of the humerus, and the mobile arm is on the midline of the radius. Perform elbow extension. Exactly 0.
We're going to perform range of motion for forearm supination, and we're going to place the axis in the ulnar styloid, and the stationary arm would be parallel to the anterior midline of the humerus, and the distal arm would be in the ventral aspect of the forearm. And can you perform forearm supination? And it is 80 degrees.
This is range of motion for forearm pronation. The axis is going to be placed on the ulnar styloid process. The stationary arm is going to be perpendicular to the anterior midline. Perform pronation. The mobile arm is going to go across the dorsal surface of the forearm, and it is 8.
We're going to perform wrist flexion. We're going to put the axis over the triquetrum. The stationary arm is going to be over the midline of the ulna. Can you perform wrist flexion? And then we're going to measure to the 5th metacarpal, and it's about 60 degrees.
This is range of motion for wrist extension. The axis is going to be over the lateral aspect of the wrist over the triquetrum. The stationary arm is the midline of the humerus, and the mobile arm is the midline of the 5th metacarpal. You go into wrist extension. 60 degrees.
We're going to perform manual muscle testing. We're going to do shoulder flexion. We're going to stabilize the shoulder, and then we're going to palpate the anterior deltoid. And can you perform shoulder flexion to 90 degrees? And now we will apply resistance, min, mod, and max.
This is manual muscle testing for shoulder extension. I'm going to stabilize the scapula, palpate the teres major, perform shoulder extension. I'm going to provide resistance downward and outward, mid, mod, max.
So we're going to do manual muscle testing for shoulder horizontal adduction, and we are going to stabilize over the shoulder and palpate the pectoralis major. And can you perform adduction? And now I'm going to apply resistance to the distal part of the humerus, minimum, moderate, and maximal.
This is manual muscle testing for shoulder horizontal abduction. I'm going to first stabilize her scapula, palpate her posterior deltoid. Can you perform shoulder horizontal abduction? I'm going to provide resistance on the proximal side of the elbow, then mod, max. This is manual muscle testing for shoulder abduction to 90 degrees. We provide stabilization to her scapula, palpate her middle deltoid. Can you perform shoulder abduction to 90 degrees? We provide resistance on her distal part of her humerus, mid, mod, max.
So we're going to do shoulder internal rotation. We're going to stabilize distal under the humerus. We're going to palpate along the teres major and the longissimus dorsi. Can you perform shoulder internal rotation? Now we're going to apply mid, mod, and max resistance.
This is manual muscle testing for shoulder external rotation. I'm going to provide stabilization under the distal part of her humerus. I'm going to palpate her infraspinatus muscle. Can you perform shoulder external rotation? I'm going to keep stabilizing, providing resistance on the distal part of her forearm, mid, mod, max.
We're manual muscle testing for elbow flexion, and we're going to stabilize the humerus, and then we're going to palpate the bicep brachii. Can you perform flexion? And then we're going to provide resistance on mid, mod, and max.
This is manual muscle testing for elbow extension. I'm going to place one of my hands under her humerus to stabilize it, palpate her triceps. Can you perform the motion? Keeping my hand to stabilize it, provide resistance on the distal portion of her forearm, mid, mod, max.
We're going to do forearm supination. I'm going to stabilize the humerus proximal to the elbow, and then I'm going to palpate the supinator. And can you perform forearm supination? All right, and I'm going to apply pressure, and she's going to have to resist the pronation. And that's it.
This is manual muscle testing for forearm pronation. I'm going to stabilize her humerus, palpate her pronator trace. Can you perform the motion? I'm going to keep stabilizing and provide resistance on her dorsal aspect of her forearm, minimum, moderate, max.